Pursuant to the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Is Fred TV here? Yeah. We're aware that this meeting is being recorded by Fall River Educational TV. The only other guest, and we could call him a guest with us, is the Executive Director of BCEDC. But I'm going to start by taking attendance, a roll call. So if I could start on in my upper left-hand corner, Joan, please.
Joan Medeiros.
Joe Marshall.
Johnny Erickson, present.
Who else?
Sarah Page.
Ann Keene.
Louis Gonzalez, present.
Ken? If you're there. John?
Present.
John Coughlin?
Here.
Okay. Ken Fiola? Well, he'll have to sign in after. Okay. Those are the people in attendance right now. If somebody comes in, they'll have to acknowledge that. First item on our agenda is the approval of open session meeting minutes from December 23rd, 2020. Did anyone not get those? I mean, I have mine, but I want to make sure everybody got them and had probably 30 seconds to read them. So is there a motion to accept those?
Motion to accept the minutes of December 23rd.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Johnny Erickson, Joan Medeiros made the motion. All in favor, a roll call again. Joan?
Yes.
Joe Marshall, yes.
Johnny Erickson, yes.
Luis?
Louis, yes.
Ann?
Ann Keene, yes.
Okay, so moved. The next item is the approval of warrant and financial reports. I have mine. There was an item in there, recommendation on donation requests for a small business program. Ann, can you, Ann, I'm sorry, Sarah,
Yes.
can you just enlighten us on that again so we can vote on whether or not to do it?
Sure. Joan and I met the other day and discussed the program that is part of the TDI partnership to make loans available to small businesses. And it's a very well-developed program with online application forms. The interesting part of the program is that it's designed to encourage businesses to work together. It also is designed to help them develop more online presence so that in this COVID times, they are able to work with customers more online. And so Joan and I are recommending that we make a donation of $5,000, which would probably help 2 businesses with grants and assistance. And we'd be one of a number of participating partners. And one of their real interests is that the RDA really be acknowledged as a partner.
Okay.
And just to note that this is the program that is being administered through Mass Development
That's what I was gonna ask.
and has built a foothold downtown with their program with the TDI.
Good. Okay, why don't we take them separate? Is there somebody want to make a motion that we do participate with $5,000?
I move we participate with 5,000. That's not in the warrant though, right?
No, we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, all right.
No. John, you want to acknowledge who you are and
John
acknowledge what the vote is?
John Erickson, I move
Okay.
we proceed with the $5,000.
Okay, donation. Is there a second?
Ann Keene, second.
Ann Keene, second. All in favor, starting in Joan?
Joan Medeiros, yes.
Joe Marshall, yes.
Johnny Erickson, yes.
Luis?
Louis Gonzalez, yes.
And,
Ann Keane, yes.
okay, unanimous, so moved. Next item is, you have a copy of the warrants. Is there a vote to approve the warrants as noted?
Joe Maderis, a motion to approve the warrant for January 2021 as presented.
Johnny Erickson, second.
John Erickson, second. All in favor, starting again with Joan?
Joan Maderis, yes.
Joe Marshall, yes.
Johnny Erickson, yes.
Luis?
Lou Gonzalez, yes.
Ann
Yeah.
Keane, yes.
Okay, all right, so moved. I also want to welcome, you see an unfamiliar face on here. It's Emily Ennis. And Emily is a consultant. We'll give her a chance to talk a little later. Emily is a consultant working with us on the Armory project. So she'll give you some background on that when we get to it. Oh, we've gotten to it. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Bank Street Armory. And as noted on the agenda, approval of submission to DHCD requesting to amend the downtown urban renewal plan. And Emily is here to answer any questions, maybe even make some statements, Emily, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'd be happy to, although Sarah, I saw your hand up first. Did you want to?
She already has a question.
Joe, I wanted to say a few things about the financial report, but why don't I do that in my executive director report?
That's a good idea because we don't have a spot for it on here.
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good. So good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you all tonight. My name is Emily Ennis, and I'm principal of Ennis Associates. I actually worked on your waterfront and downtown urban renewal plans when I was part of the Cecil Group and then later Harriman. So very familiar with both of them.
Emily, can you speak up a little bit?
yes.
It's either my hearing or your voice, and I can't determine what it is.
Okay, happy to speak up.
All right, thank you.
Again, Emily Ennis from Ennis Associates and was the project manager for your downtown and waterfront plans. Tonight, I'm here in case you have questions on the letter to DHCD that will amend your downtown plan to add the Armory as a lot for acquisition and later disposition. Working with John Coughlin and with Sarah Page. We also spoke with Maggie Schmidt of DHCD to find out what the requirements were for a minor plan amendment, which is what we're asking that these be recognized as. She was kind enough to provide us with some samples of what other communities had done. So what I've done is drafted the letter for your review, and if you have any edits, and then also updated the maps, the map for the acquisition of the parcel and for the disposition, and also identifying it as the rehabilitation of a building. And then finally updating the tables for acquisition and disposition, so it's included in those tables. So I'm here if you have any questions about the process or about the mapping itself. And again, thank you very much for having me here tonight.
Well, thank you for being here. Does anyone have any questions? If you recall, we asked, we hired Emily to deal with the beginning, the DHCD getting us approved inside the downtown urban renewal plan and making sure everything is in the right order to proceed forward. Johnny, you had a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Emily, thanks for attending. I just had a quick question. So on the three maps, the first one is parcels to be acquired. The second are lots to be created for disposition.
It's either, yes, that's correct. That's the title. So it's either they're created for disposition or they're already existing and they're being disposed of. In some cases, we were looking in the original plan, we were looking at the assembly of parcels. So what might have been acquired as two separate parcels for disposition, we anticipated that they might be combined into a single parcel. And you'll see that in the bright yellow line. Some of the lots are red with a double yellow line around them.
Yeah.
That's where we're creating those new lots for potential disposition. In this case, obviously, I've called out the Armory in the bright yellow so that people can see that it's a change.
Okay. And then the third one is buildings to be demolished, rehabbed, or constructed.
Correct. So the idea in this case was which buildings were going to be rehabilitated. Those are in red. In some cases, we were looking at the clearance of an existing lot and the creation of a new building on it. And in some cases, we were looking at whether or not it was going to be municipal use or private use. And there's one potential park in there. So that's why you see the different colors. Again, this is going to be just rehabilitation. So it's identified as such.
I got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Ann, nothing? No.
Um,
You're familiar with the building, right?
yeah,
Yes. Okay.
yes. No, we've done some work on the building on one of the lower roofs, so. Just Emily, once we submit this letter, what is the process? They're going to review our request, and how long do you think, or based on your knowledge of as to how long that they'll take them to make a decision on it?
The standard, for an urban renewal plan itself is 60 days. I don't anticipate it will take that long.
good.
I think with COVID, everything is taking a little bit longer, but Maggie's aware that it's coming. We actually spoke last week and I told her the initial draft, we had just done the maps and she said, could you do the tables as well? So that's been updated. So she knows it's coming. She's aware that that's being requested as a minor plan change. I don't anticipate it would take that long.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Emily.
My pleasure.
We'll be talking more, I'm sure. I will need a vote from someone to authorize me to execute and submit to the DHCD the attached request that we have for an amendment to the downtown urban renewal plan, which is what Emily was talking about. Is there a vote to do that?
Go ahead, Joan.
No, go ahead, John.
Oh, no, John Erickson, I was just going to say, I move that we execute Emily's proposal dated January 19th, revised January 20th, 21.
So you're authorizing me to execute and sign where it's necessary to the DHCD, the request for the amendment, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
Joan Maderis, second.
All in favor, starting again with you, Joan, please.
Joan Maderis, yes.
Joe Marshall, yes.
Johnny Erickson, yes.
Louis Gonzalez, yes.
And,
And Keen, yeah.
okay. So moved. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll talk more, Emily.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hi, Emily.
Number 5 is an update on the City Pier project, 600 Duval Street. Do you want to start with that, Sarah? And
Sure.
Johnny has been working diligently with Sarah to make sure this gets done. So
So
go
I'll
ahead.
I'll let Johnny add to what I have to say, but he and I agreed, our report really is very brief. The bids came in, we're reviewing the bids. John Coughlin will be helping us do that. And we've done some of that with the engineers. And over the next few weeks, we'll be working on really value engineering the master plan. And we understand that our visions really are a bit over our budget. So we need to be figuring out what we think we can really develop now and what we may have to develop over time.
Sarah, can I interrupt just a
Yeah.
second because you're, for the record anyway, when you indicated bids, we're talking about the bids for the railing, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry, the pedestrian railings went out to bid. And we've been dealing with it so much, I just forgot that I needed to say what it was.
Well, it's not the whole project. That's, I didn't
No, it
want that-
isn't at all.
Okay.
So we purposely separated the pedestrian railings to go out to bid first so that we hoped those could be built prior to putting the whole project out to bid. And that would be one key element that would would get done, would create safety. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to select one of the bidders, but we're not sure. We may, it's possible that we'll end up trying to put it out into the whole bidding package in the future, but we're very much still looking at that.
Okay, good.
Johnny, do you want to add to that?
Not really. I think that covers it, Sarah. We did, as Sarah mentioned, we had a meeting. Was that yesterday, Sarah, or Monday? With,
What's today? Wednesday?
I
I
can't
think
remember.
it was yesterday.
Even yesterday, yeah, we had a pretty long meeting with Eric and Andrew from Beta, and Ken was on with us for a while. But it pretty much, Sarah pretty much summed it up where we're at. We spent a lot of time going through the bids. I think we got them in, I want to say maybe last Thursday. Wednesday, Thursday, yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
And we got about six, I
Six.
believe. One, two.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Well, how much time do we have to either accept or reject the bids?
We have 90 days,
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
so we have plenty of time.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay, that's enough on that. Ken, are you with us?
I am, yep.
Yeah, you gotta put I know you're tall, but you gotta get the camera closer to you.
Not sure what happens here, so I'll try to get up here.
Because we've been looking at your ceiling lights for probably the first.
I'm not sure why that's the case, but this is what happened when Lynn leaves me to my own device.
Oh, that's better. Okay, all right, thank you. Well, and you missed, I wanted to welcome you,
Thank you.
Ken Fiola, representing BCEDC, providing administrative services to our board and Sarah. So the next on the agenda is project plans with administrative services consultant Ken Fiola of Bristol County Economic Development Consultants.
Well, thank you, Joe, and good evening to the committee members. It's nice to see everyone again, even if it's via Zoom. Look forward to having a very productive working relationship with the board, as we've had in the past. It's been a delight thus far to be working with Sarah and John and Joe and others as it pertains to the Redevelopment Authority and its plans for the future. So I have like maybe five or six different talking points I'd just like to briefly go over, update the board on some of these things. So the first issue is the mayor, myself, Joe Marshall, Frank Macchione, I think that might have been it, and Sarah. We had a Zoom meeting with the Lieutenant Governor as it pertains
Oh, that's right.
to economic development projects within the city. And specifically, we addressed the Route 79 project, as well as the commuter rail project. As you all know, commuter rail is set to be commencing in 2023. All indicators indicate that project is still on time and within budget, so I don't anticipate that being problematic. As a matter of fact, the governor in his address yesterday made mention of commuter rail being reestablished to Fall River and Bedford starting in 2023. So that's a good stuff. One of the things that concerns us a little bit is that the parking that's associated with the platform, the rail platform, which is located on the corner of the Ball and Pierce Street. Right now, there's just a flat surface parking lot there that's being designed to accommodate approximately 240 spaces. We think that that's not enough parking spaces. If you look at parking that's taken place around commuter rail terminals, whether it be Worcester or Framingham or even Lakeville, you'll see that they've always underestimated the need for parking. And as a result, they've had to add additional parking as time moves forward. So we're having a discussion with the Lieutenant Governor's office to see if there's a way that we can release close to $2 million in bond funding, which was appropriated by the legislature as part of the last, not this previous economic development bill, but the one before it. where we could do deck parking along the waterfront. So those discussions are taking place at a minimum. We want to make sure that the flat surface lot is designed as such so it can accommodate deck parking in the future if it's necessary. As we all know, the cost of parking decks is extremely expensive. You're looking at anywhere between, $20,000 to $25,000 per space. So, just doing the math, if you're doing 100 spaces, that could be, up to $2 million or $5 million. We want to make sure that if there is a parking deck constructed down there, that it also be designed so it can accommodate additional levels of parking if it's determined that it's necessary. The other point with regard to the discussion was on Route 79. I think the Lieutenant Governor was a little taken back by the slow progress that's being made to date. She has since put me in touch with different departments under her administration, and we're having conversations with regard to the finalization of the Route 79 schedule, where we can get a specific start date and a specific completion date. I was in contact with them as recently as the end of last week, and I expect we'll have some additional information coming forth in the next 2 to 3 weeks with that information contained within it. Obviously, right now, we're under the impression that the project is supposed to start sometime around 2023, but we want to, get a more determinative start date for that project. So we're discussing the project with outside investors as well as local city people and the local administration, we could speak with a lot more authority on that particular issue. So a lot of things happening along the waterfront, with regard to the FRA, urban renewal plan. We obviously had the Bob Karen project that's taking place in partnership with Bay Coast Bank, which is, the construction of 49 market rate units on the corner of the Ball and Turner Street. That project is scheduled to be opened up sometime in late summer, early fall of this year. And there's a lot of enhanced interest on some of the other parcels within the overall waterfront urban renewal plan area. So, with regard to the urban renewal plan itself, as you know, the board had completed with Emily Enos and Steve Cecil 2 urban renewal plans, one for the waterfront and one for the downtown. Those plans have been approved, more than a year ago. And I think, what I would like to do in the future is maybe meet, we can discuss it as a full board, and we can discuss it as part of the subcommittee of the board, really to identify, and so I can get a better understanding as to how the board wants to move forward with the implementation of these plans. As you saw in the maps that Emily had provided you earlier, there's a lot of properties there have been identified for acquisition and disposition. So if we are going to stop moving these urban renewal plans forward, I think we need to have discussions as to what priority projects or what priority properties we want to identify to help maintain momentum in terms of development within these areas. I think there's a few significant properties that have been identified that would have high impact as it pertains to the development of market rate housing with with some retail components within it. But overall, we're looking at something that we need to move forward on if we're going to try to catch up with the opening of the commuter rail and also, ride on the fantail of some of the other projects that are taking place in and around the downtown as well as the waterfront. So, maybe after this meeting here, I can coordinate with Sarah, and then we can figure out whether or not we meet as a full board, or if you want to meet as a subcommittee to at least begin discussions on these issues, so that we have some sort of game plan as it pertains to moving these things forward.
Good idea.
Also talked about properties in the Commerce and Technology Park. I know Sarah has included some maps, which are going to be extremely helpful. Once again, I think we want to talk about targeted uses and users. What I would also like to do is reach out to Bob Coughlin. Bob is the former head of the Mass Bio Council. He's now left Mass Bio and is a managing director for life sciences at Jones Lang and LaSalle. He will be in charge of identification of development parcels for the expansion within the biotech sector. Once again, you know, the technology park is a fully permitted, has all the necessary infrastructure in place to accommodate this type of expansion. It has significant water availability, which sometimes is extremely helpful to some of these companies as they look to expand. So I think reaching out to Bob Coughlin will at least give us a seat at the table as he works on behalf of JLL's clients and the identification of locations where they may choose to expand. So I'll put that letter together. I'll send it out in draft form for everybody's review and signature, review and comment, and then we can get it executed and forward it up to Bob himself. The next issue is a Pleasant Street Urban Renewal Plan. As you know, Senator Rogers has put a placeholder in the recently passed economic development bill for $1 million for an urban renewal plan implementation within the Pleasant Street area. In order to access this $1 million, I think the state is looking upon the Redevelopment Authority and or the city to put together a scope of work and the actual development of an urban renewal plan for the Pleasant Street area. Again, we have that $1 million placeholder there. Typically, these placeholders are only good for 3 years before they expire. So I think it's in the best interest of the Redevelopment Authority to start considering how they want to go out and begin this process. Once again, that could be maybe a work as part of a smaller subcommittee of the Redevelopment Authority or a discussion with the full board. But it's my opinion that we need to get a consensus on an RFP and a scope of work that we can advertise sometime in late spring, early summer to bring on an urban renewal planner such as Emily Ennis or others to begin the development of that plan. The plan itself would probably take a year to complete. So if you start this summer, you're looking at the summer of 22 in order to have an approved plan. And then being able to tap into that $1 million, that $1 million could be used for property acquisition or other type of improvements to the Pleasant Street area, which would enhance development there. So I think it's very important that the Redevelopment Authority, look upon this as an opportunity to leverage $1 million of state funds. I spoke to the mayor about this as well as CDA. CDA is willing to put up $50,000 towards the cost of the plan development itself. When we did the waterfront and downtown plans, I think each plan individually costs somewhere between $100,000 and $130,000 per plan. If CDA, and I think Pleasant Street could be a little bit smaller, but a round figure would be 100,000 thereabouts with CDA participating for $50,000, which would be a cost savings to the Redevelopment Authority if you decide to move in that direction. Lastly, Route 79. The one other big component of Route 79 that I think we need to start having preliminary discussions with the state and MassDOT is how they're going to transfer that new 16-acre parcel of land that's going to be created as a result of realigning Route 79, breaking 8 lanes of traffic down into 4 lanes of traffic, creating this 16-acre developable parcel. I think we've always all envisioned that land would be transferred to the Redevelopment Authority at no cost. That may be just a wishful assumption on our part. So I think we need to start having conversations with the state now as to how they intend to dispose of that property, whether or not it can be disposed of free of charge to the Redevelopment Authority, whether there's a cost involved with it, whether or not we need specific special legislation to accomplish that objective. Whatever the issues are, I believe it's important that we start to at least begin discussions with them. It may be a little preliminary from their standpoint, but it's really not because this thing's going to be on us sooner than later. Even if they begin construction in 2023, you're looking at a 2025 completion date. And in the interim, you can do a lot of things with regard to that land itself, everything from master development securement, master developer securement through an RFP process or identification as to how the redevelopment authority would actually move forward with the disposition of those properties. So
Ken, can I interrupt you there? A couple of questions. You said what, 17 acres?
16 acres.
16 acres, okay. And you gave us good advice, you know, we need to let them know that we, first of all, have to let them know that we're interested in doing something with that land. I'm ready to do it tomorrow, but who do we let know that we have an interest in doing that?
So my recommendation at this
Yeah.
point would be to continue to have dialogue with the Lieutenant Governor's office. Okay, because if we go to MassDOT directly, they're not going to really be able to do anything until they get the approval from either the governor or lieutenant governor.
Sure.
So we might as well start at the top and work our way down. It's a lot easier if we have, you know, their not their approval, but, you know, their consideration on our side and getting these things accomplished as opposed to getting up to the level and asking for that approval. So if we can get them on board early, they can then, you know, translate that down to MassDOT, which will make our, you know, our plight a lot easier.
And we should, as a board, discuss what we think the best use of that land would be too, because it would be so much better to go to the lieutenant governor with an idea, maybe not a firm idea, but an idea of what we might want to do with that land.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. So the urban renewal plan actually calls for, I think it's 1.4 million square feet of overall development there.
There you go.
I think what we would probably want to do, you know, and the market keeps shifting, right? So what's a good market last 2 years ago is not the same market today, may not be the same market, you know, 2-3 years from now. So I think, you know, once we can, they may actually ask us to do that.
Good.
So we may want to keep that in mind, that we may have to do a small master planning of that 16-acre parcel, take into account everything from the heights of the building to the parking requirements, as well as the types of uses we want to see there, so that it's all compatible to the existing neighborhood, the waterfront, how we can capitalize upon its close proximity to the commuter rail platform, and really create this new neighborhood, right? It's going to be a dense neighborhood,
That's right.
but it's also going to be a very active neighborhood. It's going to, you know, depending on how you view Florida, it's either your front porch if you're coming in over the bridge heading east, or it's your back porch if you're headed west and looking at those sunsets, right? So I think the master planning of that will be essential, so that we can come up with something that's cohesive and non-threatening to the surrounding neighborhoods. And I think that's where building heights really start to come into discussion here.
Good. All right. Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to be proactive versus just waiting, and we could end up third, fourth, fifth in line.
Yeah, I think there's a few things here that we got to be proactive on. So the challenge of the urban, you know, a lot of communities go through urban renewal plan development. The challenge is to implement those plans.
That's right.
And the challenge is to update those plans when necessary. Because both of these plans are chock full of good information. There's also language in the new economic development bill, and I'm not sure how it's going to shake out. But there's under section 7002-8031, there's a $40 million appropriation for a program to provide assistance of projects that will improve, rehabilitate, redevelop blighted, abandoned, vacant, or underutilized properties to achieve the public purposes of eliminating blight, increasing housing production, supporting economic development, increasing the number of commercial buildings, blah, blah, blah. So there's going to be a $40 million vehicle that actually the Redevelopment Authority may potentially use for the implementation of those plans, right? which could help with property acquisition, either through purchase and sale or through eminent domain if necessary. This $40 million will be, according to the legislation, would be administered by Mass Development, which we have a good working relationship with them.
Yeah.
I think, we need to start getting on their radar screen earlier than later.
Yeah.
And at some point, the chair, myself, Sarah, the mayor, we may want to meet with the new Mass Development head, who is the former mayor of Lawrence. His name is Rivera. And he's just recently taken over the office in January of this year. So he comes from a gateway city. He understands the challenges of gateway cities. And I think it'd probably be good to go up and have a courtesy meeting with him, let him know some of the things that we're planning to do down here, let him know about our interest in this $40 million program that may be available, and get him on board early if we can for some of these projects.
Good idea. All right, anything else, Ken?
Nope, that's all I have.
Does anyone have any questions specific to the Administrative Services Report? Okay, hearing. Somebody have one? No. Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to, you know what we need to do? We need to vote to proceed, because Ken had mentioned this, with the development of an urban renewal plan for Pleasant Street. Ken hit on that. There's $1 million set aside. In summary, we've got to access that within 3 years. Is there a motion for us to look into this and proceed with the development of it? Is there a discussion on that?
I move we proceed to investigate the Pleasant Street development options.
Renewal plan, yeah. Okay, we can do that. Is there, if there's a second, is there a second?
As a second to investigate, yes.
Okay, that's Joan Maderas. Could we have a roll call vote? Joan? Joan?
Joan Maderas, yes.
Okay, Joe Marshall, yes.
John Anderson, yes.
Yes, Louis?
Louis Gonzalez, yes.
Ian?
And Keen, yes.
Yes, all, okay, so moved. We will do that. Sarah, you got that down? Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Okay.
All right, we're good. Executive Director's Report. Sarah.
Yes. Well, I'm going to give a really short report this time because most of what I'm doing is already outlined in the
We've already done it.
agenda and in things that we've discussed. So I just thought I'd kind of review the projects that I'm working on. Right now, a major focus is the city pier and getting that out to bid. We really want to get that to construction, as you all know. So that's a major focus. Another is the Anawan Street Liberty Utilities property. And I've talked with Emily Innes about the possibility of her doing some work with us on that. John Coughlin had pointed out that we're going to need help going to DHCD because we need their approval to ultimately purchase that property and to approve the appraisal. So we are interested in the possibility of having a contract with her for some on-call services to help us develop a plan for that property. We need to figure out if we're going to do parking, how much parking, the uses of the buildings, and really begin to make a plan, because we'll own it in the fall or early spring next year. And there's really a need to be clear what exactly we're going to do with it. It will allow us to raise funds or, really proceed with our plans.
Sarah,
So,
can I elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure.
In case maybe you're going to continue to talk about it. But we have entered into a purchase and sale, and that's there. It's ready to go. But the next stage is, what are we going to do with the property? We've talked vaguely about it, but I think we need to sit down and do some planning as to what do we, the RDA, want to see that property become. So I think the next step, what you're saying is where we're at now, but the next step is to have some planning surrounding that location. And I think that will be our next step. Right, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay.
And you
Continue.
talked with the mayor, and the mayor's interested in having a conversation about it. And we'd like to invite a couple of the board members to participate in some meetings to talk about it. So that's really an active project. Then the Armory building, which we talked about, moving that along. And another activity that's really become a focus is the amount of interest that we're receiving from businesses that want to purchase land in the technology park, and developers that want to develop. And so I've been doing a lot of work with getting offers, negotiating with developers, and we don't have anything right now that's crystallizing, but it's been an interesting process to start looking at what people want to do and what seems to be possible with that land. So we'll talk more about that later on in the agenda. And then another project that I'm involved in that you've all encouraged me to do is collaborating with the Transformative Development Initiative, the TDI initiative that's going on in the downtown area, which is an area that's part of our urban renewal plan, so it fits perfectly in our work. And tomorrow I'll be on a webinar about one of the funding sources that Ken just mentioned that Mass Development has. So I'm also keeping my eyes open for funding sources for our work going forward. And I just wanted to touch on the finances and the financial report. I have been working with our bookkeeper, and so you got a financial statement just hot off the press, and I'm sorry you didn't get that sooner, but I've been working with her and will continue to work with her on the fact that I believe there are some receivables and some payables in the financial report for the year that need to be adjusted or removed. And so I'll be talking with Joan, our treasurer, about those as we work through that. And she and I talked some about it the other day. And I think the most interesting piece that people ask about is what is in our bank accounts. And so I'm just going to point you to one page. Let's see. They're not numbered, which is difficult. It's page 5 is the balance sheet and the assets. So it lists the two bank accounts at the top. So you'll see that in our bank accounts right now, we have $3,791,000 and a bit more. And so if you look at what we're investing in Anawan property, investing in the city pier, the fact that we have expenses each month that come out of that, we definitely need to be thinking about our next steps of how we'll be increasing those funds to keep our operations and our projects going over time. But I just wanted to give you that update so that everyone's a little clearer about how that's looking. It looks as though, the warrant for this month was $40,000 in costs for the month, a lot of it consultants. And that's probably a reasonable average per month, given the amount of work we're doing on City Pier with consultants and our other projects. But we'll talk more about that next month. I just wanted to give you more of a picture than we've discussed in the last few meetings.
I'd like to make note too, that we don't really have any assets that really create any cash flow. So I don't know if we'll ever get there, but you make a good point, Sarah. That's what we have. That's what we're spending. John, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that obviously it's not in there, but the Seaport grant of 1 million is factors into the big
Well,
picture.
yeah,
When
well,
when-
that
whenever it's
million,
funded.
that 1,200,000 and or 1,600,000.
No, that's a million.
It's 1 million, but we're putting money into that too, so that's not going to be a plus for us.
Well, it makes more possible on the city pier than what we are contributing ourselves. But
Absolutely,
it
absolutely.
will, it
Yeah.
will come in and go out really at the
That's
same
what I mean.
time,
You won't even see it. Okay,
right?
please, okay.
I think that's pretty much what I wanted to report at this point. I'm looking forward to working with Ken on those many projects that he's discussed. We have a lot in front of us. And does anyone have any questions?
Well, I'd like to make note in, because you hit on it, and when you separate it, it doesn't look very big, but I made note of the projects that we're responsible for. City Pier, Anawan Street, Innovation Way, Commerce Park, the Armory, Downtown Urban Renewal Plan, Waterfront Urban Renewal Plan, Route 79, now possibly, well, probably, Pleasant Street Urban Renewal Plan. So we've got a lot of things going on. And so when you talk about the money in the bank, it's, I don't know how far that's going to go, but anyhow, so we're very active, and it's a pretty good board. We're all active and busy in that. But I just wanted to make note, because if you take them separately, it doesn't seem like a lot. But you put them together and it is a lot. The next, well, any other questions of Sarah? John, please.
Well, not so much Sarah, maybe Ken. I have to admit, I don't know anything about the Pleasant Street development that Ken was mentioning. But if Ken's on, is
Yeah,
it
he is.
a particular area of Pleasant Street, or is it just like a general?
So that's why we need to put this little work group together or discuss with the full board. We need to define what the project area would be. Right now, the downtown urban renewal plan goes from the downtown up Rodman Street and then north along Plymouth Avenue to where the old D'Angelo's used to be.
Oh, wow.
Right, and then across, to Bedford Street. So if you look where D'Angelo's is, which is Pleasant Street, so you're headed east, so you go up that Pleasant Street corridor, right, from Plymouth Avenue up to, say, Easton Avenue, right? And then the question is, how wide do you want to spread out for them? Do you want to keep it within just that Pleasant Street corridor, which you could do both the south and north side of Pleasant Street, or do you want to take in some of these surrounding neighborhoods? Do you want to take in that little area around Quarry Street where you have the Stafford Mills that could be potentially redeveloped? If you look at the street that runs parallel to Pleasant Street, Alden Street, you have a lot of private development that's taking place there. You have the Curtin Loss, which took place. You had the Liberty Project. You have Chris Starr that put in 100 units at the old LB File. Chris Starr also bought Hay Textile which abuts the LB File building. He's going to be putting up another 40 market rate units there. So there's a lot of activity that's taking place there. And there's that block or two between Pleasant Street and Alden Street. That's highly dense. It's a lot of triple deckers. So we just need to figure out what we want to do and define the area. We could further define it once we get a consultant on board. But in order to bid it, we have to come up with some general configuration of the study area. And we could also then modify it afterwards. And the whole purpose of Pleasant Street is, if you look at Pleasant, it's probably one of the worst streets in the city, right? You have a lot of vacancies, you have a lot of underutilized properties, you have a lot of underperforming properties. The plan itself would give us a more comprehensive and cohesive approach to development along Pleasant Street. And there may be some development opportunities there to capitalize upon what's taking place on Alden Street. We have another market rate unit, 14 units taking place on Easton Ave, where the old Notre Dame Rectory was. So there's a lot of bright spots around Pleasant Street. It's just Pleasant Street itself seems to be a blighted area, so to speak. So it's really, I guess, a long-winded answer to your question, John. It's really up to the board as to what the study area could be, should be. But, we would have to sit down and identify at least a preliminary geographic area for study.
Well, Ken, let me ask you, were there any conditions in getting the $1 million included in the bond fund? How to use those funds?
I think the $1 million came up pretty much. I don't think there's any conditions on it.
Okay.
It's $1 million for Pleasant Street, right?
Okay,
And I think that the appropriation resulted from a discussion between the senator and the mayor as to the need to do something for Pleasant Street,
very good.
how we could, enhance that area.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks for your-
Just to add to that, I was in a meeting with Bay Coast Bank members and the mayor and Mike Dion talking about Pleasant Street the other day. And one thing that was also stressed is that there really are a lot of anchor stores, shops that have been there a long time that are, have a good clientele. And, there's the Estoril restaurant and other kind of anchors up and down the street. So even though there's vacancy and you can see a lot of need, there are also a lot of strengths to build on, which always helps enormously. And the other thing that Jim McKeague has done is help the neighborhood council apply for a grant. And so the neighborhood council is active and really interested in work in the Flint neighborhood, which Pleasant Street runs through. So there's resident engagement. And it seems as though there are just a lot of things to build on, even though there are challenges.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Is any other questions before we move on? No? Okay, the next item, well, this would be you too, Sarah, I think. Discuss assessment of RDA land available for sale on Innovation Way and Commerce Drive. I think you hit on that, didn't you?
Well, I did. I just wanted to send out to you these maps and
Oh, okay.
plans and mention that Renee Kodega, who has worked at VHB, our consulting firm, for a very long time, was involved in helping plan the road work and flag the wetlands, and has been very involved in Innovation Way. And she's been wonderful about just responding to the developers who've been giving us proposals, but many of them have gone to her and said, can you help us understand where buildings might go? And so I found it sometimes a little hard to understand exactly where the raw seafoods right of first refusal parcel was. And so the first site plan in, I think, is really helpful in showing where raw seafoods is. Then that big parcel next to it is where there's a lot of wetland, and one of the recent proposers was hoping that the RDA would maintain ownership of the wetland. And I've been thinking more about that and think that we should talk with some of the conservation people in the city and, Freetown State Forest borders there. So it's conceivable we could find a conservation entity that would take ownership of some of that wetland if that continues to be a concern of developers. And that's certainly something that is often done when developers are looking at buying a site with a lot of wetland. They sometimes do work out an arrangement with a conservation organization. So I'm going to look at that over time. And then I think it would, if you go 2 plans over, oops. wait a minute. Oh, I guess I wanted you to go back to the first one. It's so small, it's a little difficult, but I just thought I'd point out these proposals that we've been getting from, we got one from Everton back a few months ago that was really to buy all of that land and develop it for distribution. And we didn't continue to pursue that opportunity. And now we have a proposal that still holds from Fall River Holding LLC. And their interest is in that warehouse number 3 that is on here as just a conceptual plan.
Wait,
Yeah,
time out.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Are these items that we should be talking about in executive session?
oh, right. Yeah,
Okay, thank you, Joe.
thank you. So anyway, some of these developers are interested in those parcels. So I just wanted you to be able to see where they are.
Okay,
You're right.
Can I just add something to that?
Yeah.
yeah,
If you look at that first map where it says, and this doesn't have to be an executive session because it's already a public issue. We have the raw seafood property, and then on the second map, you have the 2 parcels, one in blue and one in green.
yeah,
With the second one in green is the right of first refusal.
yeah.
I went down Innovation Way. There's a backhoe that's tucked in the woods there. And I'm not sure, I would assume it's Raw Seafoods, but I'm not sure if where that backhoe is actually located, if it's on the parcel that they purchased or they have the right of first refusal on. And it looks like, and maybe I just can't tell, but I don't know, I'd have to look at the frontage along that area. But if it's on the right of first refusal, I think you want to at least notify them because it looks like they're going through that parcel, cutting a road, doing some clear cutting to get to the other parcel. At a minimum, you should let them know that they shouldn't be on there, number one. Number two, that if they're going to be on there, you need some sort of indemnification or something in case there's an issue there from an insurance perspective.
Mhm.
So somebody may want to, if we can get, and I'll be happy to do this with Sarah, if we can get the linear footage of that parcel that they purchased, we should then be able to make a determination as to whether that backhoe is on their parcel or it's on the right of first refusal.
Good idea.
Okay, just because we don't want them necessarily disturbing that other parcel if they don't end up being the owner.
That's correct.
Agreed.
Hey, Ken, it's John. There is a recorded plan for those 2 lots at the Registry of Deeds that has the dimensions, so I can send that to you, and then we'd have to
Oh,
have somebody,
good.
Yeah,
somebody somehow on the ground figure out where it is, but I know there is a survey and a recorded plan with those 2
yeah,
lots
if
on record.
you could just give us the lineage there, John, and have the parcel,
Okay.
then I can,
All right,
we can make a rough estimate as to where that backhoe is.
I'll send you an email with a copy of it.
Okay, perfect.
Good. Good. Anyway, thank you. Sarah, anything else?
No, I think you can look at the other parcels that we own and there's not as much interest in the other 2 smaller parcels.
No. Yeah, good job on this. This was helpful. Yes,
On the Commerce Park parcel,
yes.
I've been contacted by a proposed party that's interested in that. So hopefully we'll have a letter forthcoming to the Redevelopment Authority on that in the next week or so.
Great.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, good. All right, thank you, Sarah.
Mhm.
Okay, at this time, make a finding that an open session, if we go any further, would have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, and because of this, I'd like a vote to enter into executive session for the 2 items on the agenda and not return to open session. Those 2 items are on your agenda to approve and review executive session minutes from, for December 23rd. And the other is to discuss real estate proposal offers for the 70 acres on Innovation Way. Is there a motion to enter into executive session and not return?
I
Joan
move-
Medeiros,
Go ahead, Joe.
Joan Maderas, second.
I'll second Johnny Erickson.
Right, John. All in favor, starting with Joan.
Joan Medeiros, yes.
Joe Marshall, yes.
Johnny Erickson, yes.
Louis
Lou?
Gonzalez, yes.
Ann,
Dean, yes.
okay,
Later.
so moved. We'll discontinue the open session and go into executive session.